so much for joining us here on the Monsters in the Morning on Comcast SportsNet. I'm Dan Jiggetts here alongside my partner Mike Norton.
What up?
And win or lose, he is here every day following the Bears game. He is John Crist, the publisher of the Bear Report magazine.
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me to the weekly Hunter Hillemeyer fan club meeting. I'm looking forward to this.
Hey, all I know is he's playing as good a middle linebacker because I've seen in the last 3-4 years the guy's always got his assignment. He forces. Hey, if Urlacher deflected a pass for an interception yesterday, also had an interception, and a week ago had 2 forced fumbles, he'd be the player of the week.
He probably would. But I don't remember us having a lot of Hunter Hillemeyer conversation after that Bengals game. I don't remember a whole lot of Hunter Hillemeyer conversation after that Cardinals game. I think he's a really good player. I would love to have him on my football team, but as a starting middle linebacker on this team and this scheme, probably not the best.
Then let me ask you something. What do you remember about Urlacher this year, and what do you remember about him last year?
I don't remember a whole lot of him about this year, obviously, because he got hurt in week 1.
And he didn't make the Pro Bowl last year.
I'm aware of that. I am not captain of the Brian Urlacher fan club.
Well, it sounds like you are because you fired on the guy who had the best game outside of Nick
I did not fire on Hillemeyer. I think he's a good player. I would have him on my team. But in this cover 2 scheme, when you need special plays out of that middle linebacker position, you'll get him 100.
Well, what do you call those 4? What do you call the 4 plays he had over the last 2 weeks?
Games. It's 2 games.
But basically, he was dinged up, wasn't he, before that?
You know, what about Dan Pompey wrote an interesting column in the Tribune, I want to say Saturday, comparing the numbers over the last couple of seasons between the middle linebackers, Nick Roach and Hunter Hillemeyer and Brian Urlacher. Now, at the end of the article, he said, obviously, there's a difference in terms of, just an impact guy, but the raw numbers, they're about the same.
They are.
It's hard to look at just the raw numbers because there's other things that happen in that position. Because remember when everyone was loving how Nick Roach was playing for a couple games, but then all of a sudden all the news came out that he wasn't making calls in the huddle quickly enough, he wasn't amplifying.
Well, that's what Danny brought up, the leadership.
He wasn't making the changes at the line of scrimmage. That's true. Hunter Hillemeyer is better at that. But again, you can't just look at things like tip passes and tackles and things like that.
Really? What do you look at then if you don't look at tackles?
How about the fact of being able to take away the middle of the field so those slant passes and crossing passes aren't wide open?
So when the Bears were getting eaten up on rushing yards over the past 2-3 years, who was in the middle?
Brian Urlacher was in the middle.
Just
not getting a whole lot of help.
You know what? You know why you don't want to discuss what Dan just brought up? Because it goes against your argument. Because Dan's right. Those statistics bear out. They really do.
Here's the thing that you miss when you don't have somebody like Brian in there, and we talk about strength up the middle and leadership up the middle. Is a guy that's always getting people in the right place. Now, Hunter, obviously a very bright guy and a guy who you can rely on to get people, but it takes a while to really kind of get comfortable with all of that. It looks like the Bears defense is getting real comfortable with it because when you see a guy like Jamar Williams come in to replace Lance Briggs, and Jamar comes in, he seemed like he was in the right place yesterday. The right place, the right time, and delivering for the Bears.
Do you agree, though, John, that we are going to have to start getting rid of some of these aged players? The Los Angeles Dodgers were the best at this. When Ron Say got older, even though he was still playable, they'd get rid of him. Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, Steve Garvey. They all ended up on other teams. I think the Bears, because they have hardly any top, with no top draft picks, have to start peddling some of these aged ball players, and they can still get something for them. I mean, Briggs is an all-pro, but I mean, is Briggs going to bring this team back?
You know who's also really good at that? Bill Belichick with the Patriots. Because everybody loved Richard Seymour, but he got what he got from when he could. Everybody loved Troy Brown and what he brought to the team.
I think they'd love to have Richard Seymour back for this year.
I think they probably would. But you know what? He had more value when they traded than they're ever going to have the year after that. The thing is, I think Lance Briggs is a really good player.
Sure.
I think he's by far your best player, but I mean, just look at the landscape of the league. He's a really good weak side linebacker. He's one of the best open field tacklers in the league. But do other teams really look at him as a difference maker? No. And in terms of value, be honest what you can assess this guy for in terms of value. You're going to get maybe a 4th-round pick for him, plus you have to swallow some.
Lance Briggs,
absolutely.
A 4th-round pick?
You think you're going to trade and get a 2nd-round pick for him?
He's one of the best. He's one of the best outside linebackers.
You're right.
But wait, what would you get for Urlacher? I want to know what you'd get for Urlacher.
Hold on.
Please bring it.
Hell yeah, you get a second.
You're not going to get a second-round pick for Lance Briggs.
What did you pay for Gaines Adams?
Well, that's because you had a general manager that didn't do the right thing.
Bingo. There's got to be another one out there.
You
want some bad general managers in this league.
If you want to take a straw poll of GMs right now and see what they would give up for Lance Briggs, you might get a 3rd-round pick if you're lucky. You're not going to get a 2nd-round pick.
At least
it's not going to happen.
No.
You were talking about how great Randy Moss was earlier in the show. They got him for a 4th-round pick. A 4th-round pick.
He had baggage, though.
He had so much baggage it took 2 trucks to bring it to the plane.
He had so much baggage they charged him $550 to get on the plane.
And would you say
Lance has no baggage?
Just behind him.
Lance has no baggage?
He's done. It's done. It's over. That's a player, man.
I'm not denying the fact that he's a player.
Right,
I think
though,
he's a really
James
good player.
number 2.
But my point is, the Bears need to keep him and they need to build around him, not only because he's a really good player, but also he doesn't have the value you think he does.
You're going to build around an outside linebacker?
You're not going to get. You're not going to get a
In this
second round pick. You're not going to get a second round pick.
That's what the Patriots did. They built around Teddy Bruschi, Dan.
Got 3 Super Bowls.
You
to
got
show for it.
to get a new quarterback,
Look,
by the way.
Which way do you
got a lot
see
of problems.
this organization going? Do you see them going the way that Mike's
Easy
talking
Dale.
about? Yeah, just gutting the team and starting all over again. Or do you see them trying to look in the free agent market and say, here's a guy, this guy can help us, it's not going to cost us except for the contract? Do you see them going that route?
I think that's probably a more realistic route because this is a city that doesn't necessarily accept, a full-on rebuilding program. And I think you have to look at the roster. There are salvageable pieces. There are guys who can get healthy and get better. But I do believe there are some big money, big name guys who could be shown the door. Maybe Tommy Harris is one of them because you're not going to get much more out of the guy.
Why is the
He knows
maybe
what he
in
used
there?
to be. Nathan Baxter, another big money
playing
guy.
full reps the week before he says his
I told you this in training camp when you had me on the show, is he is not going to be an every down terrorizing force. He's going to be a rotation guy. He's going to make you a big play here and there. He's not the Tommy Harris he used to be.
Well, I said
stand
that.
by what I said.
Were you for the contract extension? Because I wasn't. Were you for it?
I was for it. I was
now
for it
because
they
I
structured
told
it
you. I
properly.
told you he should have never got one, and he shouldn't have. But let me also say this. I believe that the Chicago Bears mystique is gone. I believe they don't have a style to play anymore. They go 1 week run, 1 week pass. They don't have any set style where they used to have that same style. And
now, would you prefer that they go back to that style?
I would prefer they get rid of the cover 2 now. And I don't think Lovey's the guy that can coach them. At the end of the days of hoping that people turn the ball over and let them just pull off chunks of yards.
Well, the cover 2 works for some teams around the league.
Yeah, but you know what?
Personnel
I'm
there.
more for stopping
The cover
people.
2 is never going to go
No.
away. The cover 2 is going to be a base call, a regular call for every team in the league.
but
In
that's
terms
a
of putting
regular
defense
call.
around it, I don't know about that.
How much, on a percentage basis, would you say they run it?
Not as much as people think you do.
Probably about
maybe a
25,
third of the time.
But would you say that's their thing defense? That's
Yes,
what
I
they're
mean,
known for?
the cover 2 is the base of what they're trying to do, but it's not like they're calling this cover 2 defense every single time. In a perfect world, Lovie Smith wants to run cover 2 on 1/3 of the calls. He wants to blitz on 1/3 of the calls, and then he wants to have an 8th man in the block on 1/3 of the calls. Ideally, that's what he wants to do.
His preference to run a cover 2 is on what, first down?
It's going to be usually on first down and then usually in third and long type
I
situations.
think he runs it
because
more
take
than
away
John
the
saying
longer
than a
plays down the
third.
field.
But the days of hoping that people turn the ball over while teams are getting big yards, I think those days are gone. You can't pray and hope that you can strip the ball. And when you're trying to strip the ball, you're missing tackles too.
That tends to happen.
Yes, it does.
Well, and that's why the first guy in wraps, the second guy in
Not supposed to
strips.
be.
But you have to pick your poison. Though last week on the show, you said you think Lovie Smith is a good coach. If you want Lovie Smith to coach, you have to want the cover 2. You have to want the cover 2.
That's before he could have gone up by 10 yesterday. He made some mistakes yesterday that were just completely.
You know what? According to Lovie Smith, he made no mistakes yesterday because this was the game plan: get a lead and don't screw it up. That was the game
What
plan.
is a fake field goal?
Hey, let me ask you this, though.
If it works, you call him a genius.
Hey, yeah, let me ask you this, though. When you look at the field position that the Rams were granted in that game,
That's exactly what Lovie wanted to do.
8 of their 13 possessions, they were on their 40-yard line or better. That's incredible.
But they played a team that might have trouble in the BCS yesterday. The Bears.
No, they wouldn't have a problem in the defense.
They'd be what?
They wouldn't be
They'd
there.
be playing Northwestern on
More
January
monsters in the
1st.
morning when we come back. Jim, get your car weather and traffic. And then, of course, we're going to get back to John, Chris, and more from the Bear Report.
Oh.